morning. Everyone here, and happy Father's Day to some of you here. We have a few announcements today. Because of Father's Day, no evening service, so hopefully you can just enjoy your time with families if you have that privilege of doing that today. Big thing to be praying about this week, if you could be praying for the teens. We've got Diana, Jenny, and I are driving up tomorrow. We're leaving at 6 in the morning to go up to Michigan for camp for the week. So if you pray for safety there, pray for God to work in hearts. We've got a few that this will be the first church camp experience of some of our teenagers that we've been kind of gathering in. And so it's going to be a different experience. It can be a great thing. And if you could really just pray for them, especially too, that this would be a good opportunity to allow God to work in their hearts too. And I'm very thankful for Jenny being willing to help us out, and Paul and Dana letting us take their van as one of our vehicles too. So just thankful for all of your work too. We had another $415 from the Rotted Auction food yesterday. So that's just been some enormous help. We really couldn't do camp this way without it. And some of us with multiple kids definitely could not do camp without it. So we're very thankful for everyone pitching in. And this next week is a result of you guys doing the work. So thank you very much, and thanks for heading that up. Next Sunday, we're going to be able to hear from the teens and juniors as well. I think we got 20 of them going, is that right?
Yes, although one came down with stomach flu today, so we
fun.
might have 19.
Maybe 19.
Yeah.
Oh, really? So, that'd be sad. Okay. I have to say that I selfishly think better today than halfway through tomorrow. But pray for Hannah too. Maybe it's
Maybe it was just
nerves or something. Who knows? But okay. So that'll be next week. The week after that, Michael and I are both gone. And so Russ is going to take over. That'll be Russ and Debbie's possibly last service here for a while. They finally got their marching orders, and they're heading to Tulsa for, seems like maybe 6 months or so. They're planning on being back maybe once a month or something is what they're hoping. But he had a job opportunity that kind of surprised him, and they're going to take one last stab at it. They're not leaving us. They're just leaving us for a little bit, and they're out of town today too. But you can kind of just think about that and be thoughtful to them here that week. They'll be leaving later that week. All right, so I know we'll miss them, but very thankful that they're very much still part of our church family and are going to miss being here with us too. So very thankful Kenny's doing better. It's still the word, right? Okay, and thankful to have you back with us too. And keep praying for Kenny. Thankful he's making progress and apparently still giving you grace. Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead, and we've got a few of the teen young men are going to read this morning, and then Owen, you're going to pray when you're done reading. Okay. Okay. You guys, come on.
Proverbs 4:1-5. Hear ye children the instruction of the father, and attend to no understanding. For I give you good doctrine. Forsake ye not my law. For I was my father's son, tender and only beloved in the sight of my mother. He taught me also, and said unto me, Let thine heart retain my words, and keep my commandments, and live. Get wisdom, get understanding, forget it not, neither decline from the words of my mouth.
Psalms 127, 3-5. Lo, children are an heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them, and shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate. beggeth, for a wise child shall have joy of him.
Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you that we get to come and worship you today. And thank you especially for all of the fathers. Thank you for their guidance through our lives. And please give them a good day today. And in Jesus' name I pray.
So our songs this morning are going to focus on a demonstration of the Father's love, specifically through the Father sending His Son to the cross on our behalf. So if you turn to page 296 for our first song, page 296, and stand with me, we'll sing all 4 verses at the cross. Page 296 at the cross, all 4 verses in page 296. Page 279, His robes for mine, and we'll sing all 4 verses.
Away.
by There Is a Fountain.
A few verses that we're going to read together. We'll be looking at them for a few minutes at the end of the service. Today I'm also going to be sharing an update about our building. So that'll come first, and then we'll study this next text here for a few minutes after that. So if you read Matthew 16, 24 to 27 with me, please. If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. For what is a man profited, if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he shall reward every man according to his works. Now we'll take up the offering. Thank you. Dave, come on, pray for us, please.
Father, again, we thank you for all. Thank you for your love. Thank you again for your sacrifice on the cross. And we pray now today for the rest of this service. That's the offering.
go ahead and sing See the Destined Day Arise again together. Go ahead and stand, sing the first two verses, and then we'll get that up with
I'm not gonna lie, it's my first time ever doing this. I'm sure. I didn't make your animals in this yet.
Yeah, you're right.
At least it's not the three of us with all money.
Yes, exactly. They have a variety of pets.
Very naughty. Okay. So far, he doesn't like
I'm gonna be trying to sleep as much as I can. I
downstairs, and thought the older kids and those working with them might be okay just kind of hearing what's up with the building a little bit too. But nurse kids go downstairs. And my goal this morning is to answer every single question. I don't know. Answer some questions and hopefully give you an idea where we're at now. And we had a building committee meeting not too long ago and got some things decided. There's still a whole lot more decisions that have to be made. But I do want to keep you guys informed with where we're at as much as possible. I am going to see if you have questions after I'm done as well. Some of your questions might be answered, you know, as I explain where we're at. I don't know, but feel free to be getting your list ready of questions for me to have to, you know, the churches, you know, deacons especially are really good about wanting me to delegate. So if I have a question I don't want to answer, I'll just delegate it. But if you have some questions that come to mind, hopefully we can get those cleared up too. But we've been working a while for this, haven't we, towards this? I noticed the soil sample test. I had to go back a little ways to find it. I don't remember exactly what point that was in the land process, but that was back in 2018. So it's been 7 years at least since that, and we were planning on an addition before that even. So we've been working towards this a long time, and I commend you for your faithfulness and your patience, and I'm very thankful that we're here ready to move on it too. So here's a couple things. Let me just kind of walk you through a couple options, okay? We have our construction documents done. You all know that, I believe. That's allowed us to get some bids started. One of the main things we're kind of waiting on now is figuring out exactly where we can put it, which is partly determined by how big of a leach field we need, which is partly determined by where we put it, which you know what I mean. So Kurt and Dale actually came out yesterday with me. We kind of worked around some options. So I've got what I think maybe are three suggestions anyway. This is the one that they just sent us with kind of their site plan when they did the construction documents, but they don't do actual site plans. They're not going to come out and do a topographical, you know, study, and they don't do septic. So they're just kind of a, hey, this would look good here on the property. So this is what they have, and I know you can't see the parking lot, but the entrance they have coming in right here across from Culberson's driveway, right there. And then I'm not going to bother zooming in. You'll see more detail in a little bit, okay? But there would be a covered entryway, which this morning would have been kind of nice, at least when we were coming in, huh? And then parking towards the, you know, that ditch and the drainage up here. Parking here, and then wraps around in an L shape around the building. Now that allows a little bit of space in here, right up here, for an addition at some point if we want a fellowship hall. And then that's kind of how it's designed. So the kitchen is on that corner. I'd show you right here, but that kind of covers the whole building. But the auditorium is towards Churchill, right? And so then this near lower corner would be the not auditorium, you know, the adjoining rooms will be the kitchen. And so then you could just kind of knock a hole through what is the exterior wall at this point if you were building a fellowship hall, and now the kitchen could serve as the fellowship hall. So that'd be an easy swap without having to change all the plumbing and all those things. So that makes a lot of sense. What we're working through right now is just the location on the property itself. You know, it's a little bit wet when you get low, and just the lay of the land doesn't want to run real well. And then we've got two locations for septic leach field. That's one along Culberson, and then one that would kind of roll around this hill right back here. So those are the two options we're working with, and then just trying to adapt in a way that is not gonna take an excessive amount of fill, and there's just a lot of factors with that, okay? So this is the option they threw at us, but that kind of gives you a perspective of proportion. I mean, when you look at that land, it's a little tough to tell what it's gonna be like. Now the parking lot will take up a good bit of this area. They have it from here, basically wrapped around. That's two-way traffic in and out of Culbertson's that have, and that's I think about 75 spaces. So that's a good amount of parking for us, and that still leaves us with a good bit of green space here, and this whole corner too. I could see a cool bridge over a ditch, and then a pavilion and a playground or something, who knows. But there's actually a decent amount of space back here as well. That's just a little bit isolated. So that's one option. Here's another option that the proportion's pretty close. I might have it a little bit off. The building might be just a little too big for the space, but when Kurt and Dale and I were out, this is another option that would work. The one thing it would do would flip the building direction-wise, but it would allow us to have to use this septic field down here. It would allow us to be on basically the high spot and the parking up here, which would minimize our dirt work that's necessary. So depending on how much that ends up being, and there's still a lot of questions, a lot of things that when we get an excavator out there, and someone who installs septics and those kind of things, we'll be able to figure out some more of those things. But this is another option that would work, that would save us should save us, I think, from hauling any dirt in, which would be huge. Again, it's another workable option. It moves everything down a little bit and utilizes the Culbertson side, that long side that's kind of high and dry up there for parking a little bit more. And then maybe another possibility if we move the whole building just down here. See, our high side is Culbertson, and then it kind of almost like if you think of Florida, the handle here and kind of like that, that's our high side. So I don't know if this would work. We have to see if that leaves us enough leach right there, and then parking, we'll see. So there's some options. That's not nailed down yet. If you want to drive by it, there are some stakes in the ground that would represent the previous one we showed you. If you're curious enough, just drive by and see it. There's just some rebar in the ground you'll see out in the field. So a couple options, but either way, you've got plenty of room out there. And it's going to end up working out really well. We just need to figure out how it's going to happen. So this is, I think I've shown, at least probably most of you seen this before, to some extent anyway, I think. So the main entrance is this elevation right here with that covered drive-through, drop-off spot. Everything on slabs, everything's one level and nice and convenient for everyone. And then this would be the back of the auditorium. So that would be this wall for now. This is what you would see here on that side. I think it's a really usable building, but looks really nice as well. And I'm excited about seeing this come to fruition. So here's the way the layout works out. So the auditorium would comfortably seat 158 people with that square footage. We're not quite there yet, so we have some room to grow. It includes a built-in baptistry here, okay, and then you would have classrooms and office on this side. On this side you have his and hers bathrooms over here, and then kitchen, utility closet. So nice, simple, workable layout. This is called a foyer. We can walk in and have space to hang out. Maybe someone feels like bringing in donuts every Sunday morning. I don't know, just saying. But it's going to be nice to have an area you can enter. And then if you see, we have some double doors here too. So one of the things two reasons I'm excited about that. One is just for fellowship. Hopefully we can feel like we can hang out and talk after the service and interact. but also when visitors come in, that gives them a spot to be and kind of get oriented before they feel like, oh, they're right in the middle of the service. I think that'll help a lot, actually. So a couple of reasons with that. It'll be really, really nice. A couple storage rooms back here in the corners. We're never going to have enough storage, but we'll do the best we can. We might have to have a barn built out back for the rest of our storage, but that's the idea. And we'll have plenty of room in the foyer. The auditorium, maybe even a baby grand or something, and play 2 pianos would be cool. Not a sound room, but some of you have probably been to a church where they'll have kind of a still visible, maybe a raised little platform in the back corner where they can do that, and maybe the speakers will work all the time as well. So we're shooting for. But that's kind of the layout. So total occupancy we have at 190 people. Okay, so plenty of space, and we're trying to. I know the building committee's been really good about trying to maximize what we can do without making it hard on ourselves to get it done. So we feel like this is a good balance of enough room. We could always use more classrooms, that kind of thing, but it just adds up very quickly. If we can get to the point where we can add a fellowship hall, well then that allows us to expand some classroom opportunities as well. So I think what we decided is we'll go with that now. The benefit of chairs, for one, they're really comfortable. Okay, if you've been in a church with them, or a lot of actually commercial buildings and things will have those. They're really comfortable, but also you can reconfigure it however we need to. So as we grow, we can just add some more chairs. We can use it for our fellowship hall easily enough. We bring some round tables in there, and all of a sudden you can convert it. We have the kitchen adjoining right there, so it'll be a window. Be back behind Frank. You can be our server, Frank, back there. And then, just easy access to the auditorium to be able to use it for whatever we need to. When you talk about maybe VBS or something, if we want it there, or just our meals, or a lot of things we can do with that, it's going to be very helpful. And then, as I said, if we are able at some point, if we decide to do a fellowship hall, it could be just off this side right here. You already have a very workable hallway, double doors that would lead into, instead of being exterior, would lead into another room here that we could always do later if we want. Emphasis on later. So that's that. Now, if we were to design, build this, we're roughly 5,000 square feet for this. Okay, total here to here is 58 feet wide. Obviously, it's not all 58, but that's the widest part, and then end to end is 100 feet. So you're roughly 5,000 square feet. If you figure on about $200 a square foot to build, if we were just to pay someone to come in and we don't want to get our hands dirty, then it would be about $1 million. You figure $1.1 million to $1.2 million probably by the time it's done. That's a lot of money, isn't it? But God's already provided a lot for us, and we've been talking through, the building committee has been talking through our options. And so before I tell you what they've decided, I want to walk you through it a little bit. If we were to get a mortgage for this, gold, okay? If we were to get a mortgage, these mortgage calculators aren't perfect, I understand that, okay? But they ought to give us some kind of frame of reference. So I did a couple mortgage calculators. So here's one of them. All right, if we were to do a construction loan for total cost, if we were just saying, let's get this all done, let's pay for the whole thing, $1 million, we got a $400,000 down payment because, thank the Lord, we have $400,000 cash that we're ready to use for this, that we've been working hard for. And that God has provided in some pretty awesome ways for, by the way. But that means our monthly mortgage payment would be somewhere around $4,200 for the next 30 years. I don't know about you, but that is scary. Okay? And honestly, that's not doable. Our gift is not money. I think our gift can be generosity. Hopefully we're giving, but we don't have that much of it to give. You know, what we have, we give, that's fine, but some churches just have money and they can just get things done that way, and that's how God uses people's gift of giving in that way. And He just gifted us differently. So, again, I understand this might not be perfect, but this ought to give some idea if we were to do the whole thing. Now, I just had another, I think, probably God-ordained encounter. When I was working this week, we were letting another pastor borrow a tiller. If you've been in Coshocton here in the last 6 months, and if you've gone to Walmart, have you seen that new church building that's been built right on 16 there, just before you get to Walmart? That's Chi-Li Crossroads Baptist Church. And they just built a 10,000 square foot building for the church and their school. And they were projecting it at, was it $1.2 million? Something like, or I think they're gonna spend $1.2 million because they did a lot of the work themselves. And they had used a lot of volunteer work. Now that's twice the building ours is. Right, at 10,000, theirs is 10,000 feet, ours is 5. But the pastor was such a super nice guy, and they're kind of tired right now because they put in a lot of hours. But I'm gonna get some lunch with him when I get back here in a couple weeks and pick his brain about some things. He'll be able to help us talk through some things, they were just finishing putting some flowers in alongside their sidewalk, is why they needed a tiller. You know, they're just at that stage of it. But the neat thing was, he was able to share a story how God provided for them. Someone in their church passed away, but had prepared for this and had given them her estate. So they had to fix up her house, they did some work on her house, and they sold the house and property for $650,000. So that just took care of the lion's share of their building. I mean, it's just awesome how God can provide in ways that are unexpected, as we well know. Right? We've had our fair share of those things already. And I fully believe we're going to see Him continue to do that as we, what I believe is just try to do things in His timing, His way. So this is, I think, unattainable. And the building committee thinks this is unattainable. Let's scale it down a little bit. Let's say we're able to do a lot of it ourselves. So here's another option for $600,000 cost with construction. So let's say we're doing more of it ourselves, and we're saving some money, okay? $400,000 down payment, that's still $1,400 a month for the next 30 years. So obviously a lot better, and I know if you speed up the payments, you know, your overall cost isn't gonna be as much, but your monthly is pretty rough. So the scary thing about this too, if we're total 600, 400 down, we're only borrowing $200,000 in a sense, right? Okay, but here's what we would be paying for it. Over the 30 years, we're paying $500,000 to borrow $200,000. And that to us just seems like a waste and not being good stewards of God's money, okay? So, are you ready for plan C? Okay, so plan C would be, what if we take our $400,000 that we see how far it'd go and building what we can build? Okay, so if you were to build, they'll call it the shell, okay? Let's say it's not finished, you don't have drywall done yet, don't have, there's different phases that we can talk through. But the idea was to get it waterproof, get it watertight, and it can handle the weather where nothing's being damaged by sitting, okay, for continue to work. That's the other option. So here's some projected shell costs. I've got some bids in, we've got more coming in, and I've got some more to do with this. But for instance, all right, here's our breakdown of what it would take to get started and get the shell up, okay? So excavation should be, and Kurt, you can correct me on any of these if you think I'm way off, okay? These will be a ballpark, but excavation, figure about 40 grand. Now a lot of that can change based on, do we have to bring a bunch of fill in, or do we have to, you know, do anything more challenging on the property, okay? But that ought to get us the pad done, get a driveway cut in, not the whole parking lot done, but that'll get us a start probably. And we're doing, like I said, we're doing everything on slabs. There's no basement, but you still have to do footers and a foundation and then pour inside of that. So the footers for that 5,000 square feet, you've got about 360 linear feet. Should work out somewhere about 6,500 to have the footers poured after they're dug. Foundation, a couple different ways that you can do it, either block, lay block, or pour a foundation. Either of them, best I can figure, you should be comfortably looking at about 14 grand. Depending on how you do it, you might be able to be a little less, but that's about what we would be at for either 5 or 6 portions of block, or for pouring formed foundation for it instead, okay? Concrete, this is a pretty cool thing that God has already done for us. So he's already provided the labor for this, where all we have to do is pay for material for concrete. And it had some friends from Penile and from Fayette, Washington Courthouse church there. The pastor is a concrete finisher by trade, and he's offered to do it for us. Isaac Vanderscout, who was just here representing Penile, has offered to help. He's not a finisher, but he's done a lot of concrete, worked with Pastor Guerin as well. We can get just a couple other guys from there. There's possibly another one from Grace Church, and get a couple guys. We'll have our concrete work done. That's probably going to save us 20 grand, something like that. But concrete, we're looking at just material. 15,000 should be fair, I think. The septic system, again, it could be a bit of a range, but between 15 and 20, I said 18, okay, for a septic system. Except Owen and I are getting close to just saying we'll just do it. We're on our 3rd one, by the way, now. The same installer. We just finished up one this week and found another one we're going to have to fix. Just ask me how happy my boss is right now. So material, what this means is I went to Coshocton Lumber and they gave me a bid on the shell. The only thing they didn't include is siding, and if you see the bottom of this building over here, it's got that like stacked stone look, right? So he didn't factor that in, or the siding. So the exterior is wrapped but not done. So we have to add that, and I don't have that price. But that is framing, that is sheeting, that's a finished roof, that's all the windows, and that's all the interior and exterior doors. That's also interior framing. But it's no drywall, no insulation, no electric, okay, but this is the quote they gave us at $124,500, okay? We're probably 2 weeks out from a quote from Kime, and I don't know how long from a quote from Modern Builder Supply. So we've got a few coming in, that'll give us a pretty good range and idea of if anyone's crazy or not, okay? And then the last one I have a plumbing bid. Now that's more than the shell, but plumbing has to be done before the concrete, obviously. And so his bid is everything from under slab, undergrade, to finish, the finishes as well, okay? And his quote came in at 42, okay? So I don't know if anyone's been doing math here along the way, but I did it so you didn't have to. So all of those end up with $260,000. Now, you know how projects go. You need a contingency, you need to plan on them being a little bit more. I believe I've been fairly generous. I haven't been trying to cut corners with my projections. Kurt, do you see anything that jumped out at you as like, okay, that one might be, you might be looking at a lot more with this one? And it's okay if you say yes.
I'm just thinking maybe the foundation might be more.
Might be a little more than that, okay. Okay. Overall, not earth shattering.
No.
So we're ballpark at least. Let's even say you throw in another 40 just for fun, okay? And we're at $300,000, and we have 400 ready to go. Now, it seems to us as the building committee, this is not me making this decision, This is not my project, this is our project. And the building committee has decided they want to go forward with paying for the shell. We'll get that up, and then hopefully we have some we can continue working on from there. But one of the things that would do is it allows us to actually give towards projects rather than some nebulous building out there in the future somewhere that we don't see it coming yet. I think it's going to be way more fun to give to something that we actually see, and I believe God will keep providing for that. As God gives us the money, the finances for it, and the workers for it, once we get to that point, and the shell's done, that's going to be way easier for us to contribute some more too. You know, hey, we need to hang some insulation. Who can run a stapler? You know, different things like that that we can try to accomplish on our own. Or I think there's probably about half a dozen churches that have already committed to helping us. There's a lot of variables in that statement, though. You know, it's a lot of scheduling, a lot of, you know, what skills can they help with, and I understand there's a lot of things involved with that, but I'm hoping we can come alongside as much as we're able to. And God has provided in some really unique ways for us, and He's given us some really good connections and already saved us some money. You know, anytime there's a connection that saves us money, it might as well be a donation, right? I mean, that's God providing cash, even though we don't see it going out. That is Him providing a lot of money for us. So God's done a lot of things already, and I'm definitely anticipating Him to continue doing the same thing. So that's basically the plan. If we can get our site plan figured out, where it needs to go, and get confirmation on what our septic system needs to look like. A little while ago I talked to the main guy at the building department, and he told me we could do a residential septic system instead of commercial, because they do it by volume, and honestly, if you think about it, largely once a week is when it's being used, and we're not doing laundry, we're not showering, you know, it's really not being used a whole lot. So I can't confirm that yet, but that's what it looks, and we'll get these things confirmed. That would help a lot. Some of these, we're at that point of getting these things nailed down, and then find our site plan and know exactly what has to happen. And we're at that point of being able to start and get an excavator in there and start digging. So that's what the building committee's decided. We want to get the shell up, and depending on scheduling, there's still a possibility we can have this done by early winter. So that's something to pray about. It's gonna take as many of you who are able to. It's gonna take some sacrifices of time as well. I know money, that's nothing new, but maybe some of you haven't felt like you could give as much financially as you'd like to, but perhaps you're able to help physically when we can. There's gonna be a lot of work if we're gonna pull this off, unless some of you are hiding millions of dollars and just want to get this done quicker. That's fine too. But I think I truly believe part of what God is going to do through this is help us to work together and see Him provide little by little. It's always easier, and we always want the big things, right? You know, let's just pay for this all at once and let's see the big things. But sometimes we just get lazy when that happens, I think. And it seems like the more typical way God provides is, okay, I'll take you this far, trust me for the next step. And we do, and He takes us to the next step. And that just seems to be more typical, doesn't it? And so that's what I'm anticipating and looking forward to God doing through all of you. And kind of our vision forward, I guess. So, do you have any questions for me that I can delegate? Ed?
I guess the main thing is on the first drawing that you had, if that, the whole church was moved up a ways and run the septic out the back, because that's the lower part of your lot, and you wouldn't anybody be ever driving over the septic other than the entrance maybe.
We can.
I imagine that all depends on
you can
a
sleeve
lot
it.
of factors yet.
Yeah, you can sleeve it and put it under parking lot, you just can't, the leach field can't be under the parking lot.
Yeah,
You could take it through there to your leach field.
yeah.
But that is one of the main things we're trying to figure out, you know, how does this work? Because it's not just where those are, it's also what's wet. It's also, we can't just build something up and then dump everything on the neighbors. You know,
Right,
it's
yeah.
probably frowned upon, and there are a number of things there, but, yeah, good. Anyone else?
Do we have to have heat for the winter?
Wouldn't have to have heat for the winter. That's what torpedo heaters are for if we're working in there. Because the plumbing would be there but not finished, so there wouldn't actually be any water in there. So then it's just a matter of comfort. You know, at that point we wouldn't be painting or anything yet. That'd be the other time you'd really need it warm enough. But his bid is, you know, for instance, I only have one plumbing bid so far, and it's someone they use at Cross. You know, his bid is for the whole thing, but that's not going to be done immediately. That will be done in stages as we build the building as well. But it wouldn't have to have heat. So one of the things, two of the big things that weren't included was electrical and HVAC. Now, we've already got a very clear from the owner. Justin told me, you know, let us bid it, we'll do the best we can do for you. And I appreciate that. You know, there's still a lot to figure out with that. Those can be done later. They're not key to having a secure and watertight building. That and electrical. Plumbing has to be done with the slab, but the others can be in addition. But those are going to be expensive. You know, and Muskegon County it'd be better if we just moved to Coshocton County. So if anyone's up for that, that'd make the whole building process a lot easier, with a lot less oversight and codes to worry about. But you know, electrical is probably, and HVAC are going to be some pricey ones as well, and probably minimal that we can do to help that, depending on who it is. So we just need to know that ahead of time too. I haven't got quotes for that yet, you know, but that is something in the future I'll have to consider too. Anyone else? Jenny?
For the electrical, is it an option for it to be done and then just inspected?
Depends on the
Without
contractor.
paying I'm just saying without paying the contractor to do it all. Can we do it
I
yourself
don't-
and then have it inspected?
As I understand it, and again, I'll keep looking at you, Kurt, if someone else has done this too. As I understand it, that would really more depend on the contractor, if he's willing to actually
Sign off.
sign off on it, and because I don't want just anyone doing it if I'm having to sign off on it. You know, and it depends on how much oversight, if he's gonna have to check everything, and maybe yes, maybe no. Like, if it was Jay Ball, if he was still working, you know, and I don't know that he's still licensed anymore, but, you know, a friend from over Cambridge Bible Church, you know, something like that, he might say, hey, I know who's doing it, you've done this before, I have a certain level of confidence, okay, and then I'll come back through, I'll check everything, and I'm willing to sign off on it. But cold calling an electrician, our chances are a little bit less that they'd be willing to. But that's one thing, honestly, that's one thing to pray about. Because if we can save a lot of labor costs with that, and doing at least, you know, doing all the runs and getting outlets, you know, set up, and it would save some money there too. Just depends. So just another thing to pray about. The right person makes a lot of difference with who's willing to do it and who's licensed to be able to pull the permit and then sign off on it. So good luck. Anyone else? Justin?
Is there city or county water out there, or is it going to have a well?
There is county water out there. And something else you can pray about, I was just talking to Doug Culbertson, and he's been trying to get Energy Co-op out to his place for a while. So now if we can add our clout, you know, all that clout that we have. Honestly, with a commercial building, I'm hoping it means a little more to them. You know, if they're willing, they're half a mile from our property. So Energy Co-op comes to the Mid-East CDL Training Center. They come there, we're half a mile from that property. I already talked to Cameron, who owns the lines that you see sticking up in the corner, and it used to supply a lot of them there. they only supply a handful because it's not producing enough, and Doug was saying even in the winter, usually it shuts down anyway. So they won't add anyone else, they won't add us to that, and honestly, probably wouldn't even want it if they're at that kind of tipping point anyway. That's not what we want regardless. So I'm waiting on him to let me, he was gonna tell me who to talk to. I haven't heard back yet, who to call at Energy Co-op. But we're gonna start that process of trying to talk them into being willing to take the line out a little further to us, and if we have to, we'll get some other people lined up that are interested too, and see if we can't make it worth it for them. So that would be our own septic, but that'd be county water and natural gas, which would be ideal, rather than electric or propane. You know, so that's what we're shooting for, but it's not a given yet. Yeah, Jay?
Do you know if it's Guernsey Muskingum or AEP there?
It is AEP, I believe.
Okay. Yes, it is.
Okay.
They will do well, they used to do up to a $5,000 donation for new service. AEP used to.
Really? Okay. Yeah,
So
that'd
that
be
would
great.
help a lot too.
Yeah, that would help a lot. It was, one of the things I'm hoping by sharing this is, I want everyone to know where we're at, because if you have connections or you know certain things, that's gonna help so much. You know, there's, all this stuff can be done. We don't always know the best way or the best person to do them. So I would ask you, you know, come up with your ideas and your connections and things too. Brenda?
When we lived there, it was Guernsey Electric was who was there.
It was.
AEP comes to June's house, and from June's house on out was Guernsey Electric,
Which way on out?
towards Churchill.
Okay, so it
So
might still be
it's-
Guernsey.
It still would be Guernsey.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay. At some point here, early-ish on, we'll have to bring temporary service, you know, we'll make that call to get that set up, so the contractors have some power to work from. Okay, good. Anybody else? Any questions or thoughts, maybe suggestions or something? I don't want to open it up for the next hour for that. I mean, it's a dangerous thing to ask, but.
I think they have just.
Jim?
How big's the kitchen?
The most important question today, huh? I don't remember if I have, it's bigger than my office, okay?
That's good.
So let me see here. We have, just for perspective, that's a 3-basin sink. That's a shop sink right here. It's just like a shop sink. That's 2 fridge freezers. You know, and a nice big serving table. We can have, again, a verbal commitment. I need to get this confirmed, but we can have a exposed heat source stove as well, with a variance written in, so we don't have to have a commercial hood or fire suppression. That was the way it was. We're praying, and we can pray that that's still the way it is, because that makes a big difference too. So I don't remember, let's see, if this is 40, either 48 or 46 wide, I'd say that's half of it anyway. So you're talking 24 feet, let's say 24 feet long. Now that's an L shape, so you know, you're not working on the whole thing, but probably 18 by 18 maybe, 18 by maybe 20, I don't know. Somewhere in there. Should be enough for half a dozen of you to comfortably be working in there, and more serving, you know, so that'll hopefully help. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
How big, excuse me, is the entryway where you could use that instead of the sanctuary for eating?
Not big enough. It could be, you know, you could do like coffee and donuts. That came up again. But
I don't agree with eating in the sanctuary, and that's the reason why I was wondering.
right. Yep, and that's one of the discussions that we have had, and I understand. And that's one of the reasons that, I don't know if, I haven't said it in a while, but I always call it, this is not me trying to be above everyone else, even though I am taller than everyone. But an auditorium, not a sanctuary. We are the church, this building is not, and I know it's something that we can respect in a sense because it is where we meet to worship God. But that is the other factor of it, where it is different than a temple. I think it's helpful to remember that we should respect it in that sense, and take care of what we have too. But it is a means to an end as well, and that's something we'll have to try to balance and be as sensitive to as we can. Maybe if God blesses more than we have, we'll just build a fellowship hall right now too. So again, that whoever it is that's hiding millions and millions of dollars, this is your time to shine. Okay. Good. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. If you have questions, please feel free to say something. You can ask me. Okay, that's fine. I probably will end up kind of heading up like the GC kind of thing. As a church, will be the GC. Right now, anyway, it seems like that's what's making sense. I'm going to be really needing to lean on a lot of you, especially in certain areas that you're gifted in, to do some of this as well. But at the same time, this is not my building. This is not my project. And I would be very sad if it seemed like that. That is not my goal at all whatsoever. The committee has had all these discussions as well. Beforehand, we're in agreement. God has been really gracious in giving us unity like is abnormal in a building project. Now that might change when it comes to design, decorations. But God has given us just really great unity. I'm thankful for that, and I don't take it for granted. You can talk to the deacons or anyone on the building committee or me, that's fine. If you have ideas, suggestions, if you have ways you think you can help or a connection that you think might be helpful, please say something. We're going to need all of those things. This is a big project, and it's going to take some work in a lot of different ways. Whether it's sacrifice of money or time or both, or just experience and skill. It's going to take a lot from all of us. But I'm excited that we're at this point now. So a couple more things, and we'll be ready to start digging. We're getting really close. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, very quickly then, I'm going to do this quicker even than I planned on, but turn to, and I'm so glad I can pass that $4,200 a month thing on by. All right, what did we do here? All right, if you could turn to Matthew chapter 16, please, for just a couple minutes. I'm going to be talking about investing, building, sacrificing, but I am not actually trying to talk about the building of the church building. It's a segue, and it was intentional. It's Father's Day, so you talk about building stuff. If I had practiced, I could have done my Tim the Toolman Taylor impression or something. But so it's appropriate in that way. But I really am not talking about the church physical building now at this point. We get to Matthew chapter 16. Jesus is talking to his disciples in verse 24, and he's going to give them some insights into reality. But if you notice, look the verses prior, he's just telling the disciples that he's going to have to go to Jerusalem and he's going to suffer and die. And Peter's like, oh, no, you're not. Remember Peter? And not on my watch. And that argument that Peter had, do you see what Jesus describes it as? Who is he acting like? Like Satan. This is not even like saying, hey, you're acting like an unbeliever. This is the extreme of saying you're acting like, and that sounds like Satan's words, when you're saying that this is not going to happen. Because Peter was concerned about the physical things. He was concerned about what he could see, what he could do right now. And Jesus says, you got to change your perspective. This is essential for you to change your perspective. If any man will come after me, do you really want to follow me? You want to do this? You want to have a relationship with God? Here's what you have to do. Deny himself. Let him deny himself. Take up his cross and follow me. So here's the proposal. All right, you get a contracting, building, and we go to a builder and they give us here's a proposal. Here's what we'll do for you. Before you sign the contract, here's what it's going to look like. Does this look like what you were expecting? Here's the proposal. So here's what Jesus is doing here. The proposal in verse 24, if you get a proposal from a contractor, it's a document outlining the details of this project, and it's going to give you the scope of the work, the cost estimates, and the timeline. Well, what's the scope of what Jesus is talking about? The scope here is, do you want to end up in fellowship with God? If that is your goal at all, then listen up. If you have any desire to follow God, then here's what you do, okay? The estimates, is this going to be free? Wouldn't it be nice if our church building was just free? It'd be great. We wouldn't take ownership of it the same way. It wouldn't mean the same thing. You know how it is anytime someone's handed something, it's just meaningless to them. When I was working for the housing authority, it seemed like, sadly, the ones who were, this isn't always true, but the ones who were given the most cared the least. And so this is not going to be free, guys. Do you realize that? Following Christ, it's not free. It wasn't free for him. Okay, why would we expect it to be just free and easy for us too? There is a cost to this. It's going to require denial of self. You see that here, let him deny himself, take up his cross. Now remember, the disciples here, did they know exactly how Jesus was going to die? Was this in their mind now? They knew a Roman cross. But did they know about the Roman cross? They sure did. They'd seen this way too many times for them to miss what he's saying. He's saying, take up your cross. This was not, hey, life might get tough. This was you will quite possibly die. Literally, physically die. Are you willing to go that far? So the estimate, it's not going to be free. And the timeline, take up his cross and follow me. Is this just follow me long enough to make a decision to trust Christ and then you can do what you want? Now that's not salvation, is it? Salvation is not get me out of jail, get me out of hell, and I'm going to do what I want with the rest of my life. This is a decision I trust Christ and I'm going to follow him. And I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm going to be trying to follow you by your grace, and when I fail, you're going to pick me up because I'm one of yours. But this is a lifetime now. This is even eternal commitment. This is not just a one-time decision. You need to make that decision. I'm not backtracking on that. But this isn't just I remember getting saved when I was 3. I know my life doesn't look like it, but I remember the decision. That's not what he's talking about here. If you want to follow him, here's the proposal. Look at verse 25. We see the payoff. What's going to be the payoff? For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. See, this is what Peter was concerned about in the previous verse, wasn't it? What was he looking at? What was he concerned about? He was concerned about getting what he could out of this life. Now, he had some maybe greater goals than sometimes we do, but it still wasn't enough. He was still just focused on this earth and what he could get in his lifetime. Jesus was focused on way more than that. What are we working for right now? Those of you who are still working, what's your goal? I'm waiting for someone to say retirement. Isn't that honestly part of our goal? I am going to work till I can't, so I don't have to work anymore, right? If maybe our goal of working is just to survive, you know why we work? Some of it is just so we can have actually some food on the table, right? I got to pay the bills. It's a necessary evil. You have to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. By the way, there's nothing wrong with retiring either. Sometimes you're working so you can have some fun. Is there anything wrong with enjoying life that God's given you? No? Work, and if God blesses you, then enjoy it. That's great. So, how much of what you're working for are you going to be able to keep? How long are you going to be able to be retired? Not forever? There's an end to retirement, huh? When you're retired from retirement. It doesn't even, retirement doesn't last forever, does it? Because this life doesn't last forever. How about fun? Well, you guys, a lot of you understand this. Now, I'm definitely old enough to have to think, do I want to go sledding with my kids anymore? You know what I mean? There's some of those things that were fun at one time, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do that anymore. Anyone want to go skydiving? Some of you are like, bring it on. And so you're, no, it's not for me. Or I maybe would have one day. I'm not doing it now. Even some of those things we enjoy, has that changed in your lifetime? You either can't do it anymore or you don't want to do it anymore. So even those things, they don't last forever. You can work to survive, but guess what? We're not as in control of that as we think. And no matter how much in control we are, it's not going to last forever. But we don't like to think about that. We're like Peter, and we're just thinking about today. Why are you going to keep going to work then? Because you all know that some risk and some self-denial is required to getting some benefit, right? I get paid every 2 weeks from Cross. I get paid once a month from here. There are times when you work without getting paid yet, right? If you're a contractor, you do a lot of work before you get paid, and sometimes you're like, I've got to get this project done just so I can send them that bill, so hopefully they'll actually send me a check. And a lot of times you're working ahead of time without getting paid yet. If you're getting paid every other week, there's 2 weeks you're working, they haven't given anything for it yet. And you're willing to risk it in a sense, because, okay, I'm going to get a benefit from it, and there's some risk to doing it. Unless you're illegal, you're probably not getting paid in cash at the end of the day every day. We all have some kind of that risk, and we're willing to still work, even though we haven't got paid yet, because we understand some risk and some self-denial is required to get some benefit. Our current generation seems to think the only time they should do anything hard is if they feel like it and there's no downside. Right? If it's easy and I like it, that's the job for me. Amelia was just telling me how much she's really enjoying being 4 days into work and training everyone else now. And she's already frustrated with her own fellow teenagers. Right? Because the norm is, if it's not easy and it requires any kind of effort, I'm out. And that's just, we know how it is now. This is why I love knowing our kids have the greatest opportunity in the world if they're just willing to do the hard and unpleasant thing. Man, they will have jobs anytime they want them. Not a problem. If you're willing to lose your life now, you're going to gain true profit for eternity. What are you really giving up? If you are willing to give up something now for the Lord, are you really giving up that much? Anything we're giving up, it's stuff we can't hold on to anyway. That's what he's saying. You want to hold on to your life? Okay. But by the way, just spoiler alert, you're going to lose it. This is not something you can hold on to forever. So why not use it? Why not spend it and deny yourself and invest in the things of the Lord? Verse 26, last two things here, verse 26 and 27. What's the priorities? Verse 26, what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Dads, I'm especially talking to you right now. One of the things that we can be, and I can be guilty of, is I'm going to work, and I forget why I'm working. Maybe I forget my family needs to take priority. I need to spend time with them, or, it's just easier to be at work and not have to deal with some other things. It's easy to do, right? What if you do that, you work and you provide and you have all the things you want, what good is it if you lose your family, right? We understand the answer, it's worthless. Well, think about it spiritually too. What does a man profit if you gain the whole world and you lose your own soul? What shall a man give in exchange for your soul? When you get to the end of your life and you realize you lost your soul, what wouldn't you give for it? You would give absolutely anything you had, anything in your power, and it still won't be enough. So you need to decide on your priorities right now. Are you trying to gain the whole world? Or are you trying to pursue a relationship with Christ and have an emphasis on your soul, priority on your soul? Verse 27, for the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he shall reward every man according to his works. Here's the products. What happens? I love working when I am confident in what I'm doing. So you know what I mean. If you're good at something, it's enjoyable doing because you know at the end I'm going to have something I'm proud of, and I'm thankful for it, and I can look back and know, I can be proud of that. And if I told you my boss at Cross is going to reward me based on my works, hopefully I should be able to expect a paycheck. If I say what I do, he's going to be fair with me. And hopefully I'm doing good enough that I get something out of it. What if I told you my boss at Cross is going to reward that septic installer according to his works? Which he will try. I don't know if it'll work, but what does that mean? He's not paying him more. What's he going to do? He's sending him a bill for all the hours that we're having to redo his work, all of the the new tank we're having to put in, and he's sending him a bill. Now, is that fair? Yep. And that's very similar to what Jesus is going to do for us. Understand that, right? This is what he's saying. He's going to reward every man according to his works. Are you serving the Lord? Then rejoice. When he comes back, you've got a lot to look forward to. Are you only pursuing the things of this world? God is going to be fair. And depending on what you're doing, how you're pursuing Christ, that's going to change your perspective of his return. So what's the goal here? Guys, if you like to build stuff, maybe, what are you building towards? And the things that truly matter. Dads, whether you're, or maybe grandpas, maybe just men who can be an influence, are you building the things that matter? Now, it is way harder for us, I think, for us guys to build a spiritual environment in our home than it is to build a set of bookshelves. I wish it wasn't the case, but it is. I know that's the case for me too. Even just something as simply as family devotions. I had to just, this past week, even just tell my family, I'm sorry I haven't been faithful like I needed to, and we just started back up again this week and haven't done it for a while. Why is something that simple that hard? There's easy ways to do this, and it can just be the starting point, but dads, it is up to us. It's so much more impactful if you will lead there than if you make your wife do it. Our kids need us to be examples. Dads, if you're beyond the child raising years, there are so many other ways you can be an example of what it means to just be a bold man of God who's willing to serve the Lord and deny self, knowing it's going to be rewarded for eternity. So that's my prayer for us. Again, I'm not actually talking about now we're going to have a plate in the back that you all have to give sacrificially for the building. That's already been happening. I know it'll happen. What would it profit us if we got a new building but we lost our souls? Right? That is not our goal. That's not my goal for us. And my prayer for us is that each one of us is growing in Christ. Building is just stuff. The Lord will take care of that this timing, that's fine. Let's guard our hearts. Let's be pursuing Him. Okay? We're going to pray and then let you be dismissed. And we're going to stand up. And the kids, are they going to hand out or just grabbing them?
The kids can hand them out if the men can stand.
Yeah,
if
okay.
the fathers
Right.
can
Let's
stand.
pray and then we'll do that. Father, thank you for the men in this church that have in so many ways been godly examples to me and to those around. Lord, each one of us has ways where we can grow in you and grow in our faith and our execution of that faith too. So help us to be bold enough to do that. Thank you for the women in this church that support us too and help us to have the freedom to love you, to serve you, and I pray that we would take that opportunity, Lord. Help us to see eternal things as worth investing in.